There we go. Today, I wanted to talk about one of the biggest fears that's stopping a lot of people, including myself, from putting themselves out there and sharing their voice and sharing their message and being in their true, full, authentic self. Welcome back to my channel. My name is James, and this is my 100 Days of Meditation Challenge. We're on day number 11. In the description below, you'll find the link to the entire playlist of all the days of this challenge. One of the things that's been coming up a lot for me and for other people in this challenge is that I've been going through this and looking deeper into what's stopping me. And hopefully, this will help other people to see what's stopping them from putting themselves out there. And one of the big things that was hitting me was this fear of the cancel culture. There's this cancel culture going on that's very toxic. That's like, if anybody disagrees with my opinion, we're going to do everything to group everybody together and cancel them out. And it's kind of, and I understand it kind of started with this whole idea of, people that were saying derogatory things and doing things that were derogatory and shameful to other people. And I'm not all about that culture and that way of doing things and not trying to shame people publicly. But it's gotten to a point where anybody shares any kind of an opinion, and this cancel culture gets to the point of you can't share any kind of opinion that opposes with anybody else's opinion, or else you are repressing them. And that's the way the cancel culture has gotten to. It's gotten very toxic. It's gotten to a place where it's destructive to people. And it's stunting our evolution instead of promoting our evolution. It's stunting our growth instead of helping us to expand. It's restricting. It's gotten to the point where it's no longer an expansion, it's a restriction on people. Cancel culture is destroying people's ability to put themselves out there. The fear of being canceled, the fear of being judged by other people is restricting people's willingness to put themselves out there. In 2014, I had this channel, and it wasn't on this channel, but I had a channel very similar to this channel that was basically doing the same type of content, this transformational type ideas. But I've kind of changed things as I've evolved and grown myself over the years. But in 2009, 2010, up to 2014, I was running this channel, and I would built it up, and I would built up a blog around it, and I'd built up a podcast around it, and I was doing all these things. And then all these haters started coming out as I started growing and I started expanding my reach and my audience. I started getting all this hate. And it was kind of in the early days of this cancel culture. And I wasn't canceled technically by other people. I canceled myself before other people could cancel me. So I deleted everything. And I didn't even save the copies of stuff. I had some really, really great stuff. And I'm really wishing that I hadn't deleted all my archives and everything. I deleted everything. I quit content creation for about 4 years because of that fear of being canceled. And as I start diving into that, one of the things that I've been diving into in my meditation is diving into what's behind that, what's deeper than that. Because if you're afraid of the cancel culture, it's deeper than that. That's one of the things that I had to face in my meditation. It's not the cancel culture that you're afraid of. There's something deeper inside of you. And as I went inside myself and I sat with those feelings and I sat with that fear and I sat with that idea, and I was like, okay, where is this coming from? What can I do to ease this fear and to move out of that fear that's holding me back, that's keeping me from putting myself out there fully, for keeping me from diving into some of these somewhat controversial subjects that people are um, struggling with. Because anytime that somebody has something that they're struggling with, there's something in the culture too that's causing them to struggle and to repress that. And so the cancel culture is just part of this, but maybe there's another aspect of your life where you can apply this idea. Just because other people in the culture have an opinion about something doesn't mean that you have to. This is where a lot of ableism comes in, and this is where a lot of very toxic and gaslighting and telling people that they're wrong because they have a different opinion than somebody else. And I don't care who wrote your opinions. I don't care if your opinions came from a book that was written 2,000 years ago and that y'all claim to be perfect, or if it was written in a book that was written 10 years ago, or if your opinion comes from just this is what the cultural acceptance is. It doesn't matter. Your opinion is an opinion, it's not a fact. And there's a lot of people that are promoting their opinions as if they were truth, as if they were fact. And it's something I've known and stood against for a long time. And I get a lot of backlash from people for that stance. But as I was diving deeper into myself, I was like, what's causing me to hold myself back whenever I'm facing this? What's causing me to repress my own voice so that I don't get canceled? What fear is it? It's fear of blowing up. It was a fear of I've heard people say, "Oh, it's a fear of being successful." It's not really of being successful. As I've dove into this fear myself, and as I've worked with other people and I've talked them through this fear, it's not really fear of success. It's fear of being successful and then failing on a grand stage. It's still fear of failure, not success, but it's fear of being failed on a grand stage. So I'm going to fail while I'm small. I'm going to fail. I'm going to keep myself small so I don't have to get on that big stage and fail. But then part of that too is this fear of saying our truth because we're afraid of other people canceling us out. And for me, a lot of that came from my childhood. As I was diving into this, I was the kid in class. I would not give the presentations in front of the class. And the reason why is the few times that I did, I would be ridiculed by the class. I was stutter. Even if I had the presentation written out or planned out, I would stutter my way through it. And I didn't stutter, but it was, I would just I would get so nervous and so anxious that I would freeze up and I would lose what I was saying and I would lose my place in my presentation. And so I would rather fail the class than get in front of the class. In fact, I had a speech class in my high school that I failed the class because I refused to get up in front in the class and ever give a speech. And it's funny now because look at me now. I'm sitting here on YouTube and I'm podcasting, but I still, even as I've been doing content, that's still stuck with me. And caused me to hold back some of my own truth. It's caused me to hold back some of what I really feel about things because there's still that fear of being canceled because I shared something that other people disagree with, or I shared an opinion or an insight or a way of looking at things that other people disagree with. So I've had times where I've held back. And then I've never been about trying to control other people's opinions. I've always been more about what can I do to share my truth and allow other people the opportunity to have their truth, even if it's different than mine. And being okay with allowing other people to have their truth as long as their truth isn't interfering with my right to have my truth. One of the things that gets me upset with people is when their truth has to be more important than my truth, and that I have to change my truth so that they feel good about themselves, or I have to take responsibility for their actions because they don't want to take responsibility for being in their own truth or being out of their own truth. And that's something that I see a lot. And as I've gone down this rabbit hole in my own life, and as I was diving into this in my meditations today, I found that one of the things that I was holding back on so much is my own truth in many aspects of philosophy and many aspects of spirituality. There's a lot of things that I haven't shared in my philosophies because there's people in my own family that don't know some of my views on spirituality, and especially when it comes to religion. And I've talked about it tiny little bits here and there, but I haven't really shared those philosophies. But I also see some people that go kind of to the other extreme, that they've gone to this place of devolving into debating whose truth is more true. And one of the things I've found about truth is relative to your perception and your reality. And that your truth and my truth are not the same because you have a different perception of reality than I have. And that doesn't make what's true for me any less relevant for me than your truth is for you and your perception of how all this stuff works. And you're entitled to your perception. You're just not entitled to expect me to live based off of your rules. And that's what a lot of people struggle with, trying to force other people to live by their rules or we're going to cancel you. That's where this fear of the cancel culture is coming from. And I felt that way a lot of times as a child. I wasn't allowed to be in my own truth. And especially a child with ADHD, I didn't fit in. I wasn't allowed to be me. I had to fit in with the school system. I had to fit in. I had to be on these drugs to force me to fit in with society. And everything that I was taught about ADHD was about how to be a good person by fitting in with society, even though my brain didn't work the same way as other people's did. And I've learned through that it's okay. It's okay to be able to be in my truth. I'm learning that it's okay to be in my truth and to share my truth and to not hold back. And I'm still fighting that urge to hold back. I'm fighting that urge to repress myself every time I come live. Part of the reason why I'm doing a lot of these lives is because I want it to be natural and I want it to be raw and I want it to be real and I don't want it to look like a heavily edited video. And I love some of these video creators. I love like Aaron Abke is one of my favorites, but you can tell that almost all of his content is heavily scripted, heavily edited, heavily written, and some of his content's awesome, but I want it to be more natural and more flowing from my truth and flowing from who I am. Um, and so as I've been studying with Kyle Cease and his work and in his membership stuff, and he does his content pretty much the same way. Most of his content is just this flow state. He just turns it on. He might have a topic that he's going to talk about, but it's just turning on the camera and allowing things to flow where they flow from. And a lot of it comes from the community engagement. If people are seeing this, I want you to know that I want that engagement with other people because that's going to help bring more out. It's going to help bring out more specific issues and getting into more details of how to apply these things into your life. The more we get questions and feedback, the more we can get into that conversation and co-create this experience with people. And that's really what I want to see. I want to see this expand into something that can become a community. There can be a co-creation experience, not just me sitting here rambling for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. So that's why I'm always asking for comments, questions, anything that you have to feedback, anything that you want to apply. Um, I'm doing this challenge right now where I'm going through my 100 days of meditation, and I've made it through the first 11 days, and I made it every day for those first 11 days, and I'm trying to commit myself to following through on this. I am still working on some other videos and some more of our recorded videos and the more edited videos. I just haven't gotten any out yet this week. But one of the things that's really moving in me right now is getting into this space of I'm moving out of strategy more and more and more. And, I had this whole plan and this whole idea with IPG and the Intentional Prosperity Guide, things that was all strategic based. And it was about incorporating, some of these spiritual principles into the strategic approach. And the more I'm diving into this connection with myself, the less I'm moving away from this strategic approach to my own life. So why would I continue teaching it when I'm moving away from that myself? I think that's where we're evolving and we're growing and we're becoming more centered and more of a flow state and more naturally moving. And so I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't figured out what I'm going to be doing with it yet. I still want to do stuff with helping people with their prosperity. I I just haven't figured out how it all weaves around. But one of the things I found as I've been diving into this meditation challenge is it's getting easier as far as making myself get up and do it, but it's also getting harder in that I'm having to go deeper and deeper and deeper into myself, um, and bringing out things of mine that I've never shared with the world, bringing up ideas of mine. And that's where some of this idea came from is, am I being true and authentic and real if I'm holding back truths that for me keep me in my alignment, truths of my own life and decisions that I've made. And it's been just like a cycle that's happened over and over again. When I was about 25, I had an experience where there were two friends of mine that are arguing. I've actually shared a part of that story before. Um, but I kind of got in the middle of this thing and kind of worked through it with them and got them peace. But what happened afterwards was one of their wives came back to the house and jumped me up and down one side and the other, telling me how I needed to stay out of the middle of their conflict. When they brought me into the middle of their conflict, I didn't just jump in and start trying to assist them. And doing that kind of conflict resolution was, they were two of my elders and they were having this conflict, but they were also the two elders that were training me in how to do that kind of work. And yet, whenever I stepped into that they were teaching me how to do, I was once again told I was out of my place. I needed to step back. I needed to not be in my truth in that time. And I felt it inside of me trying to come up and come out and say, no, this is my truth. This is what I'm being trained to do. But I didn't. I let their opinion of what was right for me supersede my own opinion of what was right for me in that moment. I let their opinion of me, and I was apologizing for being in my truth. I found myself apologizing for being in my truth and being in my authenticity. And I love the people that were involved in this very much. I still love them. I still respect them. They are still some of my great teachers in my life. But they didn't have the right to tell me to not be in my truth and not to live in accordance with what they were teaching me to do. And so I've come to recognize now that I have to stop holding myself back when people are telling me not to be in my truth, when people are threatening to cancel me because I'm not living by their rules of what's right for me. Because this is part of the problem is we've kind of gotten to this place where my rules have to apply to everybody. And this is what happens in money. I have a friend of mine that I've made through Clubhouse that wants to shift the entire culture of consciousness around money. And I kind of agree with the ideas that he's talking about, but he wants to force it into the reality and make everybody believe the same way as he does. And that's the part that makes me pull back and say, that's not right. Because we have to we need to, if that's your truth, then live that truth and be that truth and share that truth. But you cannot force it on other people. This is one of the problems I have with our politics. Our politics have always gotten to this extreme idealism of both sides trying to force their truth on the other side. And that's where I hate our politics in our country. This is why I got away from religion, because religion is all about forcing their truth on other people and trying to hold other people to a standard of living their truth and demanding that other people live according to what's true for them so that they feel comfortable. And don't matter that you're making other people feel uncomfortable, that you're traumatizing people with your behavior. That doesn't matter as long as they live by my truth so that I feel comfortable in myself and I don't have to face my own behavior. And it's just gotten really, really toxic, and it's gotten away from what the teachers of those religions, the original teachers, taught. That's the thing, is I've studied a lot of the religious texts from different cultures, not just one either. I've studied Christianity. I grew up in Christianity. I've studied Zen Buddhism. I've studied the Tao Te Ching. I've studied different scriptural texts from different cultures. And what I found is that most of what the practitioners of those religious groups teach are not what the teachers taught in their original teachings. They're out of alignment with their own teachings because they're not really diving into the internal aspect of it. It's all about the external, and it's not about the internal. It's about the ego. It's when you take teachings from these high consciousness people that have moved out of this ego consciousness and into that heart centered consciousness. And when you translate their teachings from an ego consciousness worldview, it always distorts the teachings. And that's what's happened in Christianity. That's what's happened in Zen Buddhism. That's what's happened in Taoism. That's what's happened in a lot of these religious cultures around the world. And that's why I chose to practice being spiritual and not religious. I study spiritual texts from different philosophies. I've studied Zen Buddhism. I've studied Hermeticism. I've studied Stoicism. I've studied different philosophies, different religions, and I've kind of come up with my own personal philosophy that resonates with me. I also believe that we should not throw out the baby with the bathwater. That just because there are some toxic teachings in some of those religious texts, we shouldn't throw out the whole text because there's some bad things in there. You know, I believe in the Bible still. I don't believe it's inerrant. I don't believe it's perfect. I don't believe that most of what people say about it is true. But I do believe there is some truth in there. You just have to learn how to translate it and glean the truth from what's in there. I also believe that some of the biggest truths were edited out of there because they took control away from the church and gave it to the individuals, and that had to be edited out. Because the entire purpose of the church is control and manipulation, not the Bible, not what Jesus taught, but the purpose of the body of the church is to control and manipulate people. And that's honestly the truth of almost every religion. It's about control more than it is about spiritual truth, because spiritual truth is about aligning with yourself, is about diving into yourself and finding your own connection to source. That's true spiritual. That's really what the spiritual journey is about. It's about connecting with source inside of you. And if you can do that through the lens of Christianity and you can still have that spiritual truth and connect with yourself, then that's great. But there's limitations in how it's taught that keeps people from finding that full truth. One of the things that most religions teach is the idea of separation, which is an illusion of the ego. The separation of God is separate from us, that we are separate entities from God, that we are not a piece of God. We are all a piece of God. Not that I am better than anybody else. It's just that my awareness has gotten to where I could no longer buy into a philosophy that told me that God was separate from me. And this is the thing, is I can't follow any kind of a philosophy that teaches me that I'm evil because I don't believe what other men wrote in a book 2,000 years ago. The whole concept of good and evil is a creation to create separation. And it is a creation of ego. Good and evil doesn't exist except for in the minds of men. And I've held my tongue on a lot of this for a long time because I know it's going to get a lot of hate from people. I know it's going to get a lot of people coming at me from different directions. But I truly believe that good and evil does not exist. It is what it is. There's positive and negative energy, but both positive and negative energy come from the same source and go back to the same source. There are positively oriented people and negatively oriented people, but neither one is better than the other. There is positive polarity, there's negative polarity. And this love and light culture has kind of gotten into this place of believing that we have to all be in this positive energy. And so they're trying to force the negative energy to not exist, or teaching people to ignore the negative energy and pretend it doesn't exist. But we all have positive and negative energy within ourselves. You can't have a magnet without a positive and negative polarity. It would lose its magnetism. And we are human magnets. We are magnetic beings. So we have to accept that we have this polarity within us. We have our light side, we have our dark side, every single one of us. The true pathway to peace is finding the neutral zone and living from that place. Being in that neutral zone is what brings us into peace and harmony. Being in a place of love while accepting the darkness. We have to love and appreciate our own darkness. We can't accept the darkness in others until we appreciate and accept the darkness within ourselves. And I've held back on some of these things for a long time because it wasn't popular and because it didn't fit in with the cultural norms. And so, if people are interested in diving deeper, leave me a comment below. Let me know. This is my meditation for today. We will see what tomorrow brings. Until then, have a fantastic day, and we love you. We'll see you next time. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, leave them below.